On today's show, we are giving out some gifts and stocking stuffers for the Cavs. Danny Cunningham's with me to do that. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
All right, the music you heard on the way in is from our friends at Astro Radio. I'm Chris Manning. We have a guest today, Danny Cunningham from ESPN Cleveland. You can read his Cavs coverage at thelandondemand.com. Hear him on the radio anytime he's over there on the airwaves. He has a wonderful sweater on today. Sina, you love
Why,
me.
thank you.
Yeah, it's great. We're a Christmas team. I've got a little Grinch one on. Evan is ducking this episode, which is unfortunate.
As he always does when I'm on.
He just can't handle the Danny. It's just a real bad look for.
Does not want to share the podcast with me.
No, it's really unfortunate. I want to tell you though that today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered the season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. Okay, we're gonna do gifts today. We're gonna give out some gifts to the Cleveland Cavaliers. It's the holiday season. We're gonna be giving. We're gonna be kind. Give some stocking stuffers. Give some real gifts for the team. But Danny, let's start. Cavs Raptors Friday. Good luck to anyone trying to make it downtown amid all of what is going to be a really bad weather night. On the Cavs front, Evan Mobley is now listed as questionable with right knee soreness. That is a new addition to the injury report. Unclear about what that stems from at this time. Ricky Rubio still out. Dean Wade still out. Dylan Windler still out. Lamar Stevens upgraded to questionable after he's been doubtful and then out the last several games. Danny, I feel like this is kind of an interesting game just because the Cavs are 0-2. Toronto is coming off of a win. They have kind of been in a weird spot of late overall, but they've stylistically really given the Cavs some fits this year so far. This is an interesting game.
Yeah, the Raptors are a weird team because, we think about how the Cavs really have a problem winning games on the road, and the Raptors are similar, if not worse. I know they beat the Knicks on Wednesday night, and that was their fourth road win in 16 tries. Like, they're just bad outside of Toronto. They do present a really difficult stylistic matchup for the Cavs, though, I think. And, we kind of thought about how Milwaukee, and I asked JB Bickerstaff this the other day before the Bucks game, how, the Bucks are a team that they can play as big as the Cavs, and there's not many of them that can, where the Raptors can't, but the Raptors just have more wings than it seems like any other team in the league, and that's where the Cavs really have a weakness. So, styles make fights, and I think that's a big reason why the Raptors are 2-0 against the Cavs this year.
And it's look, one of the things coming out of that last Cavs-Raptors game was the defense. OG Anunoby played on Donovan Mitchell. I want to see how that looks this time around. And I want to see how the Cavs will deal with Pascal Siakam, particularly if Evan Mobley can't play. That will be a challenge for them. Particularly, you don't have Dean Wade either. So, how do you adjust? What does your starting lineup look like? Lamar, just for that purpose, maybe more than anything else, would be a nice get back for Cleveland if he can play. But we'll see how that goes. But again, that's I believe a 7 p.m. tip on Friday.
7:30.
7:30. Excuse me. 7:30 tip. Again, if you're going, be safe. The weather in Cleveland is going to be wild, so be safe. Okay, Dana, let's get into gifts. I'm going to let you go first. I believe you actually did this piece for thelandondemand.com, unless I'm hallucinating the fact that you did this. Did you do this?
The gift I'm giving the Cavs, and everything seems to run together, Chris, but it's basically that Donovan Mitchell's been playing at an MVP level for the Cavs, where he has been. And, I've talked to people inside the organization where it's been like, they expected him to be great, but not necessarily this great. And in part because he's never been this great. He's having the best season of his career. His shooting numbers have been fantastic. I think right now, if he makes his next 7 free throws, he'll be a 50, 40, 90 guy. Never done that before. That's such a rarity really all across the NBA. And for him to be in that area right now is really special. And even him bringing it on the defensive end is something that I don't think a lot of people could see coming in the way that it has. And I'm not trying to say, he's been Drew Holiday-like on defense or is an all-defense type guy, but the effort's been there so consistently that he's been maybe not a giant plus on that end, but he's not been a minus on that end. And if you're going to get him just even being average defensively, it's such a boost for this team. And that's what he's been, man. He's been everything the Cavs could have expected or asked for and so much more.
I think the defensive stuff is like maybe the biggest tell of how good he's been. Like the offensive stuff is great. Like he had the 12 free throws in the second half against Milwaukee. They win that game because he's so diligent and aggressive in getting to the line, right? Like that is just an unreal like effort of him just throwing himself into situations to get fouled over and over and over again. And good for him. But he also made a rotation in that game to contest, to stop Grayson Allen and get a jump ball. And that is just a play that you don't like. Yes, it requires athleticism. It requires skill. It requires know-how. But that's just like a play, Danny, that I look at and it's like that is buy-in, that is effort, that is a willingness to put yourself in those situations. And him doing that is such a big turnaround from where he was at the end of his Utah tenure. It is a throwback to like what he was as a prospect to some degree coming out of Louisville. And like you're getting the best version of Donovan Mitchell. I don't know if he's going to ultimately be like a top 5 MVP candidate. I have some. I think like that race is really stacked. I think he'd probably be like at best like 4 or 5 right now. But I do think he's very much at a level where like this is an all NBA level guard, and that gets you that unlocks so much for this team. There's other stuff to figure out, but that has clearly been such a ceiling raiser and a floor raiser to me for the Cavs so far this year.
Yeah, and in speaking with the defensive stuff, I did a number of different hits on the radio across our station today. And I brought up that play you referenced where he closed out first. It was on Javon Carter, ran him off the line into help in the key. Carter threw it back to that same corner where Grayson Allen had relocated to. Mitchell scrambles to get back and then ultimately forces a jump ball. That's not obviously the best defensive play we're ever going to see, but that's not a defensive play Donovan Mitchell makes last year in Utah. Like that's just that same level of effort's not there. And it's not to, bag on him for being a bad defender, but I also think it speaks to the happiness that he's talked about that he's feeling. And he feels so refreshed playing basketball for this organization and really needed a career reset after how the last couple of seasons ended in Utah. And I think that play just shows how evident that is.
Is he, Danny, been better than you expected to date?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I expected him to be really, really good. I expected him to be an all-star. I expected him to maybe be an all-NBA guy. But like if the season ended today, and when I say maybe be an all-NBA guy, I'm talking like, third team guard. If the season ended today, I don't see how you could not have him on the first team. Like he's been that good. And as far as the MVP race goes, like I didn't expect him to be a guy that was getting MVP votes. Season ended today, and I realized it doesn't. They played 33 games, and this is all stupid to talk about. But he'd be on the majority of top 5s, I have to think. I know ESPN did the straw poll with Tim Bontemps a week or 2 ago, but Mitchell's been even better since that poll, and some guys have fallen off because of injuries that would automatically boost him up. If the Cavs finish top 2 in the East, Donovan's gonna finish in the top 5 of the MVP vote race. Like I can't, if they're that successful, I can't see how he's not that close to the top.
The other thing I will say on top of that is that I think it has clearly been his team to some degree. It has clearly been like Allen, I think particularly of late has been really good. I think Evan Mobley has had some really, really great stretches and runs of play. Last year, in some ways, I felt like the MVP of the team was Darius Garland because he was holding it together by being the playmaker, especially when Rubio went down. He took so much on his shoulders. I think right now, though, these two are still figuring out how to play with each other. They are still figuring out how to coexist. But Mitchell has like kind of been the one who, and maybe this is just because of how he plays, but he has kind of been the one of the two who has really more asserted himself in that partnership and who has really kind of dictated what the Cavs kind of look like in a lot of ways. And I think that's notable. I think that is one of my big lessons so far throughout the season. And I think like if I'm giving a stocking stuffer off of this gift, it's like I think the sooner you can figure out how the Garland and Mitchell can play together and feel just a little more cohesive, I think the fit's good, but I think there's still room to kind of get them kind of exactly on the same page. That's when I think like we find out, okay, how high the ceiling on this group really will be, because it's about those two guys generating so much, and we'll see where it ends up.
So I want to touch on that before I give up my stocking stuffer. But as far as the fit and just the room to grow and kind of between Garland and Mitchell still trying to figure it out, I think that's like strictly an on the floor thing, because I do think that these two really do have it figured out off the court. Like, I think that they really get along. And Chris, even after the Milwaukee game where Donovan said that he had a bad defensive play, Drew Holiday got a Euro step, got to the basket, scored, and Darius Garland was the one that let him know, hey, that was too easy. Like, that's not acceptable. I don't know if that would have happened in years past. And I think that those guys being comfortable doing that with each other says a lot about what their relationship is, because they all know that it's coming from a good place. And I think that's a really, really big thing for this team, because they're still figuring out how to make it work on the floor, and they'll get there. They've only played, I think, 26 games together. So that's going to take time. But in the same breath, the fact that they seem to have it figured out in the locker room is a really big deal. As far as my stocking stuffer goes, just wanted to highlight how much I think Evan Mobley's continuing to develop as a passer. Yeah, I thought he came into the league as a good passer, but he's starting to make passes, especially the big-to-big passing and passing on the short roll, the cutters like Isaac Okoro and Lamar Stevens. I think that's been something, Chris, that's really stood out to me about his development.
Yeah, let's come back to that after this break, because I want to hit on that as well, because it was maybe the best thing Mobley did against Milwaukee the other night was a pass to Isaac Okoro. We'll come back right after this break. But first, today's episode is brought to you by the NHTSA. Did you know that driving high is considered driving under the influence? That's right. Driving under the influence of marijuana is against the law in every state, even in states where marijuana is legal. That means driving high could get you a DUI. And if you think law enforcement officers can't tell when you're driving high, you're wrong. Your friends can tell, your coworkers can tell, even your parents can tell. Everyone can tell. So it makes you think that law enforcement officers don't know when you're driving high. Driving under the influence of marijuana can slow your response time and change how you perceive time and speed. So even if you think you're fine to drive while you're high, you are not. Because the bottom line is, if you feel different, you drive different. And driving high is driving under the influence. So remember, drive high, get a DUI. Paid for by NHTSA. All right, back here on Locked On Cavs, Chris Manning, Danny Cunningham, in today with Evan. I mean, Lord knows where Evan went. I mean, liable to be anywhere, just ducking Danny all over the place. Unbelievable.
Right? It's a constant thing, man. It's like Kyrie not playing when whatever team he's on comes back to Cleveland. That's how I feel about Evan when I'm on the podcast, man.
Perfect analogy, no notes. I think the Mobley stocking stuffer is right, because if you were to ask me right now what my confidence was that he was going to be like a reliable, real floor spacer, I'm probably under 50% on that right now. It is not
like long term or for this year?
Like in the next 2 years. I'm
a little bit over. I'm a little bit over 50%.
It is just like there are flashes. He's obviously hit those couple big threes and he's willing to take them. That in itself is positive. But the percentages for where they are now, he's taking fewer attempts than he did last year at 1.1 per game. He's making the same amount per game, 0.3 per game. So one every 3 games, he's making a 3 basically. And he's shooting 24.3% at threes, 25% last year. We will see if that changes. His real growth has been at 2-point shots this year. He's up to 60% on twos. He's at 54% last year. That in itself is a big growth. The passing is the thing where I think whether it's the big to big stuff, whether it is he threw a cross from the top of the key to the corner pass on a dime, put it perfectly in Okoro's hands the other night to set up the opening 3 of the game. That is the stuff that even if the 3-point shooting doesn't come the way you exactly want it to, and he has to kind of make do with figuring out how to play without being a legit floor spacer. That's the kind of stuff that's really going to juice stuff. And if him and Allen have chemistry in that way, that's something that it makes their partnership even better and kind of maybe helps smooth over some of the maybe long-term fit questions you would have if Mobley doesn't become that kind of shooter.
Yeah, that's exactly, Chris, I really couldn't have said it much better, because we're seeing him make passes with his off hand. We're seeing him put touch on passes. He's throwing lobs, bounce passes, pocket passes. He's not, I'm not trying to confuse him with the best passers in the league, but it's not a hole in his game. Defenses can't just collapse off of Okoro or Stevens in the corner as much as they want to, because Mobley's a threat to get those guys the ball in easy situations for them to score. And that's a really big deal. If he's not going to be the floor spacer, which, maybe he gets there, maybe he doesn't, this is another way for him to make defenses pay without necessarily dragging someone out beyond the 3-point line.
I am curious to see too, if they start at some point, does he run inverted pick and rolls where they use his passing in that way? And maybe his handle has to get better for that. But is there more Yeah, it's just a little loose. But are there other applications of that passing that we see? And like that's like me, and especially where, like I think back to that Bucks game the other night, and one of the things that I thought really worked for Milwaukee with Giannis towards the end of that game was they pull Brook Lopez out, who's like a defensive player of the year candidate. And they put Giannis at the 5, and they just say, we're gonna put shooters around him, and like we are gonna space. And so far this year, Mobley plus like as many spacers as the Cavs can put around him, and him at the 5 has looked really, really well. And that's like the kind of stuff where I think like you lean into some of that with Mobley and some of his passing. And you could see a world where like he is feeding guys good looks from 3 and feeding guys consistently in that way. And I'm fascinated by if that is like a part of his development.
I think the handle needs to be tightened up, as you said, for that to be the case. But that is definitely a path that he could go down as a basketball player. I don't know if it's the most likely path. I think it's probably the best case scenario if the Cavs can treat him like that, like the Bucks do Giannis at times. And it's interesting how Milwaukee did pull Brook Lopez off the floor for that. And it's also interesting to see how some of the Cavs' best lineups are, with Mobley and some shooters. The other lineup that's really stood out to me that doesn't necessarily space the floor as traditionally, but has really been awesome for the Cavs lately is when they've got the 4 starters and Karis LeVert in there at the small forward position. Like that's been an awesome lineup for them too. I think part of it's because Mobley's so dangerous as a passer.
Yeah, I think that's 100% right. All right, I'm going to give my quick stocking stuffer here, and we'll do my big gift in the last segment. This is my stocking stuffer. It is short. It is stupid. I'm admittingly it's stupid. But I'm asking for more of Robin Lopez wired for sound during games.
Yes. Every game, put a mic on him.
Now look, was part of the magic of the clip Bally put out of him against the Bucks because Brook is there, and he has that very specific troll of being like, he's an actor. He was in West Side Story. And someone from the LA Times pointed out that like Brook had played a character from that, like had been the officer in that play at like in college, and like so he's like harking back to it. But like I have been laughing hysterically and him being like, what's going on in Hoboken? Like you pointed this out in our outline, but it's like, number one, the NBA, it's a caucus, Robin. Like get that correct. And number 2, he's like they're doing a huddle and he didn't play in this game or whatever, but he's like, why is the security guard out there with the golden oldies? He's like nitpicking the golden oldies, the Cavs like, elder dance team. I find a lot of the mic'd up stuff to be often sort of pointless because like you're not going to get like really insightful stuff. But Robin, and not that Robin
guys saying let's go, like that's what mic'd up is.
Yeah, it's stupid, and you don't remember it 5 seconds after you've heard it. But Robin Lopez, like sort of seemingly like whether he is doing this on purpose or not, understands that and is just like giving you things that are going to make you laugh. And I am all for Robin Lopez commentary on things.
Yes, I echo everything that you just said. Robin Lopez mic'd up is some of the best stuff. And I think if we're talking mic'd up, we have to give an honorable mention to Jarrett Allen. If you remember, he was mic'd up right before Thanksgiving, and he did the like Thanksgiving challenge and stuff like that. I think that the way both of those guys have handled it's really fun and refreshing for you mentioned a lot of the mic'd up stuff is stupid and pointless. It's guys saying, let's go, or shouting out defensive instructions. Like those two have had a lot of fun with it, and that's how it should be.
Yeah, it's like when you hear a coach in the huddle on these, it's like, I don't learn anything. And I understand. I understand that. I'm not expecting them to say like, hey, here's 30 seconds unfiltered with JB Bickerstaff, like outlining like how they scheme defensively out of a timeout.
And I understand why that's not public, and that's fine. But if you're going to do the mic'd up stuff, make it fun, because you're not going to give away information. Like it's always coaches saying, hey, we got to keep up the tempo or stuff like that. Like, thanks for that information. I appreciate it. But I would rather hear Robin Lopez snitch on his brother for flopping. Yeah.
And getting the city just what's going on and asking Joe Ingles, like going out of his way to be like, hey, Joe Ingles, what's going on in Hoboken? Just really good, really good stuff, from my guy. Brook Lopez. All right, we're going to come back, and we are going to do one more ad break, but got to tell you first about our friends at BetOnline. BetOnline, by the way, is the best way to find any of the sports betting stuff that you need this season and really all seasons. You can find anything at BetOnline. I mean, they have Cavs stuff. They have MMA stuff. They have prop bets. They have futures. You can bet on the Italian basketball if that's your jam. I don't know like why that would exactly be your jam, but you can do it if you're interested in some BetOnline, if you're interested in some of that stuff. They're the #1 source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. You can get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there. And if you love sports podcasts, you can find those at BetOnline as well. They are the fastest and easiest way to get your betting fix. Head to the website today or your usual mobile device to learn more. Again, for instance, they will have a lineup for Cavs Raptors. They will have a lineup for Cavs Nets after the holiday. They will have a lineup for all of the Christmas Day games. And honestly, if you're a Cavs fan listening to this, you probably want to keep an eye on Celtics Bucks on Christmas Day, not just because those are the teams the Cavs are going up against, but if things shake out a certain way the next couple of days, maybe that's a situation that puts the Cavs tied or at #1 in the East. That is in play as of right now based on where we're headed into Christmas Day. There's odds for the Cavs playoff odds, Evan Mobley and Jared Allen for Defensive Player of the Year. There's a ton of great stuff if you're interested in it at BetOnline. Remember, that's BetOnline. That is where the game starts. Check them out today. All right, last segment, Locked On Cavs. Danny, here's my big gift. I think if I could give the Cavs like one little win the rest of the year, it is that Isaac Okoro, based on what he's done the last couple games, just being a little more solid, a little more competent, willing to take threes, even though like his percentage is down on the year. I will acknowledge that.
Yeah.
I really just think him being in a situation where he is taking threes, taking a lot of corner threes, attacking closeouts, doing all of this stuff. If you can turn this into a real piece and you can find this in-house wing option, even if it's a 20-minute-a-game guy, that is such a win for Cleveland at a position they desperately need some wins at, I think. And that, to me, if you could just tell them, like, hey, you're going to have this, and he's going to be, like, average-ish, and he's going to shoot 34 to 36% on threes, and he's going to play the defense he's been playing and being impactful on that end, I think you take that if you're Cleveland in a lot of ways.
Well, the defense he's been playing has been fantastic. I think over the last 5 games or so, really since he's been in the starting lineup, he's been awesome as a defender. And, who knows tonight if he's going to start, if Lamar Stevens is maybe back. You mentioned earlier that he's been upgraded to questionable for tonight's game against Toronto, if you're listening to this on Friday. But, I wonder if Okoro should stick in the starting lineup a little bit longer, as long as he's playing as well as he has been, because defensively he's been awesome. One of the things that really stood out to me too, I think he's started to figure out how to utilize himself as a cutter even better than he has in the past. And that's a big, that's going to alleviate some of the spacing problem. It's not going to solve everything. It's not going to, be a substitute for him not being a 40% shooter from the corner, but it does help because he is a threat. He's someone that you can't just forget about and totally not guard. Now, he's going to be the least prioritized guy on the floor for opposing defenses, but he's not a zero. And if he's not a zero on that end, he's going to be a plus player.
So far for the year, Garland, Mitchell, Okoro, Mobley, Allen has played 96 possessions together. That is the most common lineup with Okoro as a 3 this season. Plus 4.9 per 100 possessions, scoring 122.9 per 100, giving up 118, which is bad and well off kind of what the Cavs' overall defensive season
Yeah, I'm
has been.
surprised the defense is that bad.
Small sample, like maybe there's some wonkiness in that as well. Like that's certainly possible. But like notably, like take this for what it's worth, like that is much better than the Lamar as the fifth starter lineups. Like those lineups have not been particularly good, even though they have a winning record in those games. And I think that matches the eye test. Like I think if you're playing two guards together who are in the way Mitchell and Garland play and the way they are, like it is really hard to have a guy who maybe can't shoulder some of those point of attack responsibilities. And Okoro is going to do that. Go watch the defense he played against Jrue Holiday against the Bucks. That was like an outrageous defensive performance where he's not getting a ton of box score stuff, but he's playing really well. And look, I just think, Danny, long term, how good this Cavs group can be and what they can win and what they can accomplish is going to be somewhat, as much as it is about the star talent, they have to hit on some wing stuff. They need to go probably find a 3.5 type at some point. Maybe that's in the trade market this year. Maybe it's a developmental piece. Maybe it's probably both, if we're being honest. Probably got to do both.
Sure.
Okoro as like a wing option who can defend for you at a high level and be a guy that can hold up in those situations and you can turn to, and having that option in-house versus having to go spend on it and invest capital that you don't totally have unlimited. Like you made your big trade, you don't have unlimited trade assets anymore. You're not going to have unlimited free agency money anymore going forward. Okoro has to kind of be, if he can be a piece that you have in-house, that's such a big advantage for them actually building out this roster the next couple of years. And if this recent spurt is real, and we'll see if it is, or it's close to real, that's a really, really big deal.
It's a huge boost for them because they even if this is real, to your point, they still do need more depth on the wing. Like they're still, incredibly thin at that spot. But having him be a real rotation player and, someone that you could have out there in a playoff game and not hurt you, that is a really big deal for this team. That makes them so much better because that is such an important spot in today's NBA, man.
It's vital, and it's like I understand how the Cavs ended up in this position where they don't totally have those, and like everyone needs them in that, and it can be very, very hard to find them sometimes. It just can be, but that where the Cavs are at, it's just like you have to try to find them now. It's just the reality. Danny, any final gifts or stocking stuffers you want to give out here before we kind of wrap up this holiday Locked On Cavs?
Oh, I don't know that I have any more. Do you?
I have one, probably it's like somewhere between a stocking stuffer and a gift. And that's good health for Dean Wade and Ricky Rubio.
Yeah.
Dean Wade has had a lot of little nicks over the years. He is their best 3.5 positionally right now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to sing the Zach Lowe, like Dean Wade accounting for all your accounting needs jingle, but like you can insert that here in your
It's a good jingle, though.
It is a good jingle. If Zach's ever in Cleveland, I'm going to that's how I'm going to introduce myself, is I'm going to just go up and shake his hand and be like, Dean Wade, for all your accounting needs. So I did sing it, but sorry.
Dean Wade.
Dean Wade. Him being healthy and not out of the lineup is just like you feel missing him a little bit.
Yeah.
And Rubio is gonna. I think they've gotten enough out of LeVert so far. Where like, okay, some of the LeVert getting downhill stuff has worked, especially while he's not making mid-range shots, and he's really cooled off as a shooter since he had that great start to the year after Darius went out. Rubio is a defender. Rubio is a decision maker. Rubio kind of piecing together some lineups for you as a connector piece, I think is something they really needed. I don't even know if it's 100% going to be the best. He's going to be at his best this year. I kind of doubt that, just coming off of a second ACL tear in that knee. But if he can just be healthy and be a presence, and he kind of sets the stage for what's to come, and maybe he does have some big moments, I think that would be such a gift. And I just also just like watching Ricky Rubio play basketball. And it is clear that like among the guys on this team, I think he probably has one of the, in terms of cachet with the coaching staff and cachet with the players, he probably has one of the highest Q ratings among those two groups. Like they clearly value him. How many times has Donovan Mitchell mentioned Ricky Rubio this year? It's been a lot.
Oh, tons. And truthfully, the gift that Ricky Rubio could give the Cavs is getting Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland out of the top 20 in the league in minutes per game.
Yep.
Mitchell's playing 36.4, Garland's playing 36 even. If Ricky Rubio's return can get both those guys down under 35.5 minutes a game, I think that's something that could really pay dividends come playoff time.
Who do you think that has mattered more for so far? I think it's Garland.
Well, so I don't know that the minutes have mattered so much for Garland. I think that with Rubio coming back, they'll be able to put Garland off the ball a little bit more. And we saw when Rubio and Garland were on the floor together last year, they just decimated teams. I think they'll be able to do that again at some point this year. But I think that the wear and tear on Mitchell, because he has had to carry loads longer, eventually will catch up to him first, where, even when Garland has played a lot of minutes, he hasn't had to carry the load as much this year as he did last year. I think that Mitchell's minutes have been more strenuous than Garland's have been.
I think that's right. All right, we're going to wrap up there. Everyone, this will be our last episode before the holiday. Danny, I hope you have some good holiday plans, some good Christmas plans.
I hope you do too, Chris.
Yeah, for the most part, I do. My family, I have my parents have COVID, so that sucks.
Oh, that's not good. I hope they're okay.
They're doing okay. My mom is restless, but my wife and I will be watching the new Knives Out movie on Christmas Eve. That is we're gonna pivot to Ohio Pie. Ohio Pie sponsor the show. Let's go. And watching
Love
Knives
Ohio
Out too.
Pie.
Shout out Ohio Pie. Nick's a
Shout out, man.
Shout out. But that is my Christmas Eve plans and Christmas Day in-laws and stuff and all of that for good measure. But it's been fun to give out some Christmas gifts. I'm sorry Evan ducked you. I'm really sorry about that.
Sad stuff.
I cannot wait to accost him for this next time we're all in the arena together and just be like, Evan, you were so excited. And then
he'll get quite a greeting from me on Monday when he's back.
No, he will not be there Monday, but guess who will be? Me, Danny. Me.
Oh, he's skipping Monday too. Wow. I knew he was off tomorrow.
He has some Christmas stuff, I guess on Monday, but I will be there on Monday because Lord knows I need to see Kyrie Irving in Cleveland.
Wow. Evan is just ducking me for the rest of 2022.
It's sad, honestly, but we want to thank you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen every day. This episode was produced by Jake Stevens. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast. Also, look, go check out the Land on Demand. Go check out my man Danny, Matt Fontana, the whole team over at the Land on Demand, East Pan 850. If you're nasty on your radio dial, check them out. Everyone have a great holiday. Be safe amid all this weather, and we will be back Monday ahead of Cavs Nets. Talk about Cavs Raptors, East standings, and a bunch of fun stuff. Till then, peace out.